If we can share and showcase what people are doing before, then it gives the industry and other agents, other team leaders, examples, roadblocks, or roadmaps to kind of follow and go from there.
Troy, let me ask you a very important question. How much technology have you come across that's been built by top brokers for top brokers?
I can probably count it on two hands, so not much. I think there's more kind of coming out there right now with people like yourself that is technology that's actually built for a problem, not necessarily founders that are building something that they want to build and creating a fictitious problem for it. So a thesis that was developed and built for a solution that the industry leaders had, there's not much out there.
It's rare. We built a technology for us. We built a product and a suite of products for us because we did not have off-the-shelf solutions. And I can tell you, most producers do not want to slow down to try to create organization because they're so busy in production. And I think that's what makes MyOps really special and what will continue to make it very special.
That's cool. So we're going to dig into that one on the call on Friday.
Awesome. We'll dig into anything you want today.
So bring it up as much as you feel comfortable in today's conversation, but I know there's more to your tech stack than just that. So, and that's what I want to uncover. Because how many pieces of tech do you guys use?
Now we're basically between MyOps and Compass. That's it.
So no Real Scout, Monday.com.
No, dude, we rolled it all up into MyOps. Let me tell you this, what we're going to talk about on Friday, just to give you a little preview, is why I believe the brokerage industry is operating in the flip phone era. And what that means, most people think the iPhone was just a sexy tool. What Jobs did that was so brilliant is that pre-iPhone, we had a physical phone. We had a digital camera. Yes.
I love my
that relic. I love it,
relic.
Dude. Imagine like to get to the A, you just press it once, but to get to the C, you got to.
So if I've got an 8-year-old and we actually got him a burner cell phone for his birthday from Target. It cost me $60. And yeah, he's like, how do I do? He knows how to work on on his mom's phone or my wife's phone, but like, yeah, 3 times.
Dude, my 8-year-old would love that.
Dude, I mean,
she tries to steal my phone. I don't let her.
It for the $60 and 1,500 minutes for him to be able to call grandma and not have to use my phone or call his friends. Like, I think these younger generations are going to grow up not knowing how to really have a conversation on the phone.
I think it's super smart, dude. I love that. I'm going to go implement that.
So
going back real quick, the analogy, flip phone era, you've got basically systems that didn't communicate with each other. Physical map, physical notepad, flip phone, digital camera. None of those things really, that's brokerage technology. You have almost every top team in the nation under a different brokerage house with their own sort of technology stack. Different brokerages have different levels of stack, and there's not a singular operations platform. And so we just built what we needed. The other piece that's really sad with brokerage is that they don't teach financial literacy to agents. So you get these top producers that understand production, but they don't understand how to run a business. And they believe that they're great business operators, but really they're just great producers. And it's like making that transition from star athlete to, enterprise sales. And so our goal is to really equip and empower teams across the country to operate great businesses and to really set themselves up as AI comes to disrupt workflows. When their workflow is completely proprietary and their data is owned by themselves, how are they able to manage that? And how can they leverage technology to help give them more time back? So we'll get deeper on that. We're going to go back in time today. We'll go into the future tomorrow.
Financial literacy for real estate agents is a whole nother world.
Yes.
Most I would say in the industry are probably behind in taxes on some sort of an installment plan for at least 1 year. And I think a lot of teams are still running the team leaders production in the same P&L as the team and not really having an understanding.
Troy. There's no P&L. If you ask a $1 billion agent what their P&L is, I've asked quite a few of them. They all look at me like I've got 3 eyeballs and say, ask my accountant. I don't know. I'm like, how much money did you make last year? I sold 500 million in real estate. Okay, but what did you keep, right? Like what was your expense ratio? What was your net profit? You know, like do you even think about maybe an EBITDA? And it's no, they're focused on production. So how do you equip a top team and really agents at large with that information to where they can make great decisions? Like maybe that magazine ad that you've spent 10 grand a year on for the last 15 years with 0 leads is something you need to cut.
Yeah, that's very true.
There's just no visibility.
Yeah. All right. So let's take it back to, when did you start your team?
We should go back before that, Troy.
All right.
How about, when did I decide to get a real estate license? You know, funny enough, I decided during college when this like group came in to talk to us about job opportunities after college. It was like an Ernst and Young firm out of it. It was like some was talking to the class, and then he brought in a manager, and they were trying to tell us that we could make $30,000 come out of college. And I was thinking to myself, like, that sounds terrible. You know, like why did I go to college to make a $30,000 salary? Like, I don't think I could live off of that. This was 2009. And I was 17 years old, and I was in my junior year of college. So I started college at the age of 14. I had my first degree at 16. I had my second college degree at 18, going on 19. And I also got my real estate license basically the day I turned 18. And it was really just in an
You're
effort.
like a real life Doogie Howser.
If you Google Doogie Howser of real estate, I will pop up. That used to be a PR thing that everybody said, you are Doogie. And I guess I was like, who is that? I'm too young. I didn't know who Doogie Howser was. So I had to Google that. But Neil Patrick Harris is now my homie. So I love that analogy. But really what I was a really ambitious young kid that did not get along with people my age. And I was like, I got to get out of school. This is terrible. What's my fastest way out? So I convinced the dean of our local college to let me dual enroll 2 years earlier than I would have legally been able to. And so I was able to pass all of the college placement tests and enrolled in courses full time. And I was just, you know, dead set on getting those 2 years back. So I came out with those extra 2 years, and I was like, okay, what am I going to do? I got my real estate license, and I got to work.
That's
so
cool.
I got my license at the day. It was the day I turned 18. I started studying for the test, got it like maybe 30 or 45 days later.
That's so cool. So at what point then did you decide to go and build the team?
Not for 5-6 years. So I worked from the age of 18. I was a single agent until I became the number one agent in my market at the age of 21. So it took me a minute, right? Like it wasn't, I got my license at 18, and I went and I worked for a BPO factory essentially. So I was doing broker price opinions for foreclosed properties. So we worked in distress sales. It was quite the challenge. You know, the complications pre-DocuSign and running people down, getting wet signatures, having to fax those signatures somewhere, it was very inefficient. So it's why I'm very passionate about technology today, just seeing in the span of my 17-year career how much things have changed. It's much easier to consummate a sale than it was in 2010 when I started. But I started a team in 2017 because I was the first year I broke 100 million in sales. I was 24 years old, and I found out we were expecting our first baby, my wife and I, or my wife was, and I knew that I could not run at that pace and still achieve the goals that I had, which was to be a great dad, be a great husband. And I simply just looked at my schedule, and I was like, I cannot work from the moment I wake up until 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, just knocking out phones 7 days a week. And I was like, I got to figure out how to leverage this system, this incredible rocket that I've built it's going. How do I bring in great people around me? And I think naturally I thought more who, not how. And so I just started bringing on talent as I saw talent. And Spears Group started as like a typical team. It's an overflow of that top producer, right? Top producers just crushing it. Oh my gosh, they can't answer all their phone calls. They got to get somebody to come in and help, split it 50-50, boom, 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 right? Like that could be a typical team trajectory. And I did that for a little bit. And Spears Group, its inception was 2016, 2017. And so we're almost a decade old, which is
Wow.
amazing.
And how many agents do you have now on the team?
17.
17. Is that your kind of your peak that you've been? Or have you been higher and saw that the higher didn't work and scaled back a little?
I have had an axe in my right hand just ready to chop because I'm more focused on quality. And I think we are prospected daily on quantity. And for me, I look at our mission statement, which is to build lifelong relationships and create raving fans. And I think about Jonathan at 18 years old, who is absolutely obsessed with just this business and how to scale, how to provide value, how to go out and just, create more capacity with the time that I had. I obsess about aligning with the right agents in our marketplace who can go and leverage our brand to do just that. And what I've learned is I can do $500 million a year with 5 people, and you can do $500 million a year with 20 people. And if you've kind of leveraged yourself with 20 different people and you're still getting the same results, you don't need 20. So it's really about finding the right agents who believe in the vision, they can execute on the processes that we have, and creating that reciprocal, I should say, value leverage.
Yeah. So you kind of answered what my next question was going to be, but what's your core philosophy or value that your team was built on?
It's excellence, which is doing the right things consistently. It's collaboration. So setting aside ego, figuring out, look, how do we get to the bottom of doing a deal? It's persistence. So persisting without exception and just being relentless, obsessing over opportunity. And then at the core of all of that is extreme ownership. So we don't do drama. It's why I don't have a reality TV show, is I'm not dramatic enough. Although my wife would argue with that. She'd tell you I'm the most dramatic one in our household. For me, like, the drama is in creating urgency. It's in authentically just being passionate about product and people. And so what I love is intelligent people that want to better themselves, better their business, and really elevate their craft, and to go out and obsess over that day in, day out, adapting when the market changes. I mean, I've been in this business since 2010. There's been a lot of different iterations of what it means to be at the top and what it takes to be at the top, what certain markets require. We've had different iterations of a team, which we should dig into, and what that looks like and what those business models are. And I think as an entrepreneur at my heart, I just love business. I study all types of different businesses. I obviously love technology, which is why I've entered the technology sector. But I think the opportunity to serve and create that we have is just amazing. And so I wake up every day obsessing over those things.
What was your first hire?
Easy. I hired an executive assistant. Let me tell you what happened when I hired an executive assistant. Pre-executive assistant, I could manage 40 to 50 transactions pretty consistently by myself, paperwork, signage. I mean, like, the capacity was great. And so what that created is this belief that I could do it all. I am the best person to put a sign in the yard. I'm the best person to do my marketing. I'm the best person to write my listing descriptions. I'm the best person to prospect. I'm the best, the best, the best. And I shouldn't say never, I did, but at the time it took me years to understand that there were better organizers. There were, better script writers. There were so many more talents to collaborate with. And my first hire was an executive assistant who took a lot of these just tasks off my plate. And I remember being like deer in the headlights, because it wasn't that I didn't want to collaborate. It was just that I felt in just my inner being so productive, and just like I was needed and wanted and valued, because I was so busy, right? Working literally, like, I've done this from the moment, I could legally do it, but I'm just a workhorse. I can grind, and I can put in the work, and I feel very productive doing that. But I didn't understand scale until I brought on my first assistant. And then I was like deer in the headlights, like, oh my God, what do I do with all this extra time? I tell
Yeah.
my team now, I'm like, when you're deer in the headlights, you better take action, because the deer that's in the headlights that doesn't move is going to get hit. And so the anecdote to bringing on this assistant was figuring out, I just bought a block of time. How is that time going to become more valuable than what I'm paying my assistant?
Yeah.
And
So
so
you
for
traded time for
anybody,
money.
we are all trading time for money. That's when you're in a production volume-based business, that is all we're doing, is trading time for money. So my level today, I'm trying to buy my time back, right? Whether it's putting in certain people, it really is processes. When I hired my first assistant, it forced me to shift from reactive to proactive. So I bought a block of time back, and then I had to understand, what are the proactive activities that I do with those extra hours that will go out and generate more business. It'll help create more relationships, and we'll put more in that funnel so that we're closing deals and we're growing our business.
So would you, looking back, would the executive assistant be the first position you would hire again, or would you do something different?
100% the first position I'd hire again.
Not a videographer or a VA versus a physical A?
I think that your first hire, you could go for a VA. VAs have come. So from when I hired my first assistant, which was almost 12 years ago, uh, it was 2015. Yeah, 2015. Back then, I mean, having a physical assistant was so important. Even today, like, my assistant today is just an unbelievable resource, mainly because I can pull myself physically out of the market and my
Mm-hmm.
business operates, right? And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how you build an organization versus building a key man problem, which most agents, if you think of legacy agents in your market that maybe they've been there for 30, 40 plus years and they're starting to age out of business, they have a key man problem. A lot of them have not learned to step out and have a brand that operates, even if they're not necessarily operating on the day to day.
Yeah. What role changed everything for you once you hired?
I think it was, okay, so there's two. One is that first jump from, it's almost like, and Troy, you've got kids. So it's like you go from you and your spouse or you and your partner to a child, right? Like, that's a massive leap. When you go from single agent all by yourself to having another human that you're responsible
Responsible for?
for, you go from hobbyist to business owner. And a lot of people don't ever get out of the hobbyist mindset, right? And let me explain what a hobbyist is. So in like the consumer vision of real estate agents, a lot of our industry has been perceived as hobbyists. It's these part-time agents that they've got their license on the side, that, you know, it's a side hustle. It's not a full-time gig, or it's a retirement position where, you know, you treat it like a round of golf where you'd show up and you just hit balls with the boys and you maybe have a bourbon on the back nine, and it's more casual. Versus when you think of a professional golfer, first of all, what it takes from a level of discipline to get to a professional level in a sport is significant. And then you think about their routine before they ever even step on a golf course is just deep. There's physical therapists, there's stretching and weightlifting and dietary dialed in, and, you know, just all types of different mechanics that need to happen before they're actually in the field. Agents don't run their business like that because they don't ever get to an enterprise level where they can think through the chaos and build these layers of mechanics that allow them to operate consistently. And so for me, going from 0 to 2 was a massive jump. And I was like, okay, I have to figure out, how do I build onto this, right? You become a foundation. And then when you start going vertical is when you hire your first assistant. You start to bring on agents potentially that can come in and either leverage the brand that you've built. Ideally, they're doing that, or you're rainmaking and you're creating opportunities for those agents from a lead perspective. That's an offshoot of that verticality. And then you start to get to a point where you need management of that team, where basically the team is operating to a certain extent and you've got different offshoots, which would be different agents. So let's say you're a team of 1 to 5 people, 1 extra agent up to 5 extra agents. And then you get in this layer of what I call operator, where you bring in somebody organizationally that creates the SOPs, standards of process for the team. Most of the time, the SOPs are getting pulled out of the top producer's mind, aligning with the vision of the company, which is likely growth and scale and or management of market share, and you're churning. And so for me, the greatest jumps are 0 to 2, which is you and an assistant, and then that 5-person team plus bring on an operator.
Yeah, it's really smart. I think a great way to answer that, because I do think a lot of people get lost in, I got an EA or I got a VA or I got support here, but there's no organizational structure. And when there's no organizational structure, it's death by 1,000 paper cuts, no matter what way you look at it. So that ops person, I think, I can totally agree, is that next person that can kind of really keep things on the track and on the rails moving forward.
Absolutely. But there's also, with ops in particular, technology is beautiful to leverage that. And really being able, like most people, they always tell me, like, my COO is, and you've met Maria, her name's Maria Kukulis. Maria's an absolute rock star. And I get asked all the time, like, how do I get a Maria? What can I do to get a Maria? And the reality is like finding a great operator is tough, because you almost, here's the mistake that agents make, is they will hire an operator, and half of that operator's time is spent chasing that top producer to pull the information out of their head to try to do their job. And that's the problem with not having, really, you don't want an operator until you've got your systems and processes established. And this particular piece is exactly why we built a technology solution for that.
So my next question was going to be, what's the single most common hiring mistake a team leader makes?
It's hiring an assistant and or ops person without systems and processes in place. So here's the thing. You hire that assistant. What does that assistant do? They literally chase you around. They're trying to like clean up after your chaos. You're just so busy in production. You're produce. And all you're trying to do is catch dollar bills in the air. And you're trying to like go into your chaotic, lane. And if you don't have a system in place, you can't bring anybody into the fold. And then you're just paying somebody to try to create the system for you. The problem is most top producers will not follow someone else's system. So they have to figure out, how do we build these layers of standard, which is where standards of process come in. And then you allow that person, that ops person, to come in, and they become the accountability for the standards of process. And they make sure that those processes are being implemented on a daily basis.
How do you, Jonathan Spears, evaluate talent or identify future leaders in your world?
I look for, first and foremost, character, but I look for that obsessive quality. So I look for those agents, and they don't have to be agents. I look for talent that they don't look at real estate as like a buck or 9 to 5, which frankly, I have a lot of issues with Gen Z, because a lot of the Gen Zers I see, like, they want to check out, right? And I think that Gen Z will end up being a really fascinating and brilliant case study, because if you want to check out, you better have a process for how you check out. And so when I look for talent, it's obsessive talent that will not stop until they get what they want and appropriately persist.
All right. So now your fun part here, tech and infrastructure. So what technology powers the backbone of your team today?
Is that like a layup?
There you go.
Let me just tell you this. I want to just be like, there's no sales pitch here. I'm just telling you.
No, look, I mean, we're having conversations with the top people, and, some of these people, the power that run the backbones, their system is Monday. And there's others that have, built other things. And so, this is a very, pivotal thing for you, and you just happen to have founded something. So it's not a salesy thing. And
not at all.
If you're watching this is not the intent, but you've hopefully the others have seen other videos and realize that this is a very common question that's asked. So, what technology powers your backbone of your team today? And if you want to go further backwards first and say, this is kind of what you were doing before and what led into it,
absolutely,
then I think it might be a little less salesy, but it's not a sales question because it's really what you're using.
First and foremost, sales is just simply authenticity and building trust. And I think for me, like, even when I bring on team members and talent and we work on collaboration, it's like, man, I'll never ask you to do something that I haven't done. I'll never ask you to do something that I'm not actively doing. We're in this together. When it comes to technology and really creating a backbone, what I've found and what was true for me is that my backbone was like duct tape. And most businesses, especially in real estate, is like they're still trying to wrap the wing on the airplane with duct tape while they're taking off, meaning they're just trying to figure out as they go. They're highly focused on production and they're maybe not paying attention to actual operations because they don't deem operations as critical because the production hasn't fallen apart yet. And most people want to produce before they put in operations because they don't feel like they need it down here. But when you get up here and you realize it's about to bust, then it becomes important. Go ahead.
Is that because we're reactive versus proactive?
100%. It's really because we're wired for production, which is what is most important to me. Where my nose sniffs first is where is opportunity to get not a dollar, a sale, a relationship, a stake in the ground. Mm-hmm. Like we just perceive and prioritize those things as producers just naturally, right? Like we are dialed in on it. What we miss in that, and this is where I liken top producers to just athletes, is when you look at a professional athlete who may be at just the top of their game, right? Think of the biggest, pro contract in your favorite sport. That pro athlete has a team of people around them that are there to manage finances. They're there to manage the business side of things. They're there to manage endorsements. They're there to manage marketing and PR. We as agents don't implement any of those things, yet we will be making millions and millions of dollars in production, and there's no layer of management for it. And I got caught in that trap. I remember, there's a year in the last decade where we did over $400 million in production, and I couldn't tell you how much money I actually made that year, right? Like I was not paying attention to the expense piece. I was just focused on the production piece. And really at that level, a lot of the mistakes that we make, just going back to that earlier question, is agents will buy an entourage. So when I told you don't hire an assistant until you have a system and process or a plan in place, it's because what you'll end up doing is you're going to hire an entourage, and then you're going to feel even more important and special because you're paying for all these people to be around you and you move and you shake with them. Like think of a top agent that they have all these people around them. The problem is that top agents a lot of times don't have visibility on how productive those people are. So they're well-intended. They want to help people. They're obviously doing something right and they're attracting talent, but it's who is leveraging capacity and technology to help them stay on track. And for me, that's where I got out of sorts. And I tell people it's like stepping on a scale, especially from the financial literacy lens, because you start to realize, okay, here's the waste in my business. Troy, you talk about, do you have a P&L for you as a producer and then for your team secondary, because there's two businesses there. Your production is one business, your team's production is a completely different business, and that there's different expenses assigned to that P&L. There's different expenses assigned to your business. It took me forever to figure that out. And I have a finance degree. I have a background in business administration. Like I get it. I just didn't think I needed it. I was just so focused on if I could just produce more. So the technology piece for us was not off the shelf. We could not go and find an off-the-shelf product. Monday.com, by the way, is incredible, but it is not an off-the-shelf product. You have to get into Monday and you build out the task management that you need for your business. And what I found difficult about that is that doesn't work for me personally. And so maybe I'll have an assistant who would want to jump into a Monday.com and build out her own workflow. But what happens when that assistant gets sick or she goes on vacation or there's maternity leave for months at a time? Like it's very difficult for somebody else to step into this like kind of granular system. So what we did is we built out basically a system that works well for the operators, so the Marias of the world, which is my operator, and then for the producers, because most operators are operating on a desktop. They sit behind a computer. They're, very organized, very type C. And then most producers are the chaotic ones. They're out in the field. They're never on a computer. They're literally knocking out the phones in their car 24 hours a day, just grinding. And it was like, how could we get some symbiosis between these two systems? And the solution for us was building out a full tech stack for our operations called MyOps. It's MYOPS. What made MyOps so special is we built a universal mousetrap for your business data. And so one other issue that we find with teams in general, mostly teams that are two plus individuals. So if you're an agent plus an assistant, MyOps is for you. If you're a 35 plus person team operating in multiple states, MyOps is especially for you. And what's amazing about it is it allows you to congregate all of that data in one spot. And what makes it real special is that AI's best use case right now is its ability to retrieve and query high levels of data. And for me, like what my operator's doing over here, I never had visibility or access to. Just like if I asked the top agent, like, what does your P&L say? They're like, I don't know, talk to my accountant. You know, like it's like this like layer of management. The problem with these extra layers is that it's almost like the film that covers your eyes, right? Like they block visibility for you to make decisions very quickly and on the go. And so what MyOps does for us is it stores and manages all of our data. We've completely eliminated a Google Drive. And what AI does is it queries that data instantly. So it's like having a chat GPT for your team with all of your proprietary information, whether it be all of the vendors that you use, the lockbox codes, the access instructions for properties. For me, it's surveys, it's buyer agent commission agreements, it's visibility on my open houses, it's visibility on my expenses. For us, the finance piece is so big and critical because like you were talking about P&Ls, we now run all of our P&Ls off of MyOps. All my expenses auto feed into the software via a Plaid integration. And what that does is I know real time exactly where I'm at. And I think even more so, my team members, they all have their own P&Ls built into our software. And it's automatic. This isn't something they're having to go and like manually enter in, every little thing. We've created two inputs into the system that really, it takes in all the data that you would need to manage the whole team.
That's so cool. So before MyOps, how many different pieces of tech were you using? Like, because you mentioned open houses, were you using an open house app and Monday? And
we were using Google Sheets. We were using Google Sheets for like simple thing. Pre-MyOps, I had Excel spreadsheets that I had no idea where to even find them or access them. If I needed them, I had to call my COO, say, hey, can you pull open the P&L? She's then calling my bookkeeper, hey, did you update the P&L? Because we're about to look at it. Think of all this waste, right? Like I'm getting nauseous thinking about all the waste we had. I was basically between shared notes, Apple shared notes, my text messages, Google Sheets. We had a Google Sheet for everything, right? And most people they're like, oh my God, my Google Sheets are the best thing ever. Until they realize just how long it takes to access information from them and why it's hard when you start to scale that's not a scalable asset. And essentially why AI can save us so much time accessing this data very quickly. But most teams will live between their shared notes on iPhone, their G Suite, text messages, which I have right now have 1,510 unread text messages. And that's after deleting a bunch on my phone. And it just wasn't efficient.
So you're also at Compass, which has a pretty good tech stack on their own. So there's not I know there's agents out there that run big teams that have gone outside of the Compass ecosystem for tech, but for like your buyer nurture, seller nurtures, are you doing that through MyOps or are you doing that through like their platform?
What's interesting is Compass's platform is the best general brokerage platform in real estate by far. There's a reason they spent $1 billion on it. It's helpful. One thing that we love about Compass's platform is their marketing centerpieces, where we can basically plug and play and put together all of our marketing assets very quickly. That's not something that MyOps addresses, and intentionally so. But what we also found is every top team at Compass that I know, they're keeping all of their data third party in it's always a G Suite. So it's in Google Word, Google Docs, Google something. And for us, it was like, okay, like we have all of our passwords pre-MyOps stored in a password protected Google Doc. Well, guess what? Maria and I would forget the password to the Google Doc. And so we're sitting there like, I'm trying to log into the MLS. Somebody's changed our password. I'm trying to get it. And now like all I've got to do is ask MyOps, hey, our AI is named Maria. Hey, Maria, what's the password for Flex MLS? Boom. Instantly, it's serving me up that data. I'm not having to look for it. I'm not having to bug, Hannah or Maria. And let me go a layer deep. If you're a team leader and you're listening to this, or if you're somebody that's trying to scale a team, people ask me all the time, like, how do you guys manage 17 team members plus, the staff that's there to help serve those guys? And I always tell people, like, my systems and processes are what manages the team. The standard of excellence helps manage the team. And so if a team member calls and they ask a specific question to one of my assistants or to me that I know that they can get now out of my ops, we always go just, hey, what did my ops say? And that unlock right there, like literally all of our standards of process, I've got an entire classroom built out in my ops. All of my vendors, all of the passwords, all of the private exclusives, all of our listing information, all of our contract information, the leaderboard, which shows all of agent production, all of the financial pieces that would be important to the agents. Like, it's now right there. And the visibility is instant. So from a recruiting standpoint, I'm able to recruit agents in my market. And I say, look, you're going to have instant access to my whole business because it's organized and it's in this manner. So there's just a value piece in having that central command center.
It's, you kind of touched on my next question. It's always so interesting because it feels like people see the questions, but like, because they kind of seem to answer the questions in line, but nobody actually sees the questions ahead of time. But literally the next question is, which tools are mission critical for scaling production?
Yeah.
And whether it's a tool or if it's a system, I think, comes into, whomever you're talking to, but what is it to you?
For scaling production, it's about freeing up your...
So scaling production of the team or getting the team into production, I can
tell you, like, it's all about having a great system. Systems are not meant to be traps. They're not shackles, right? Like, I think most producers, we get into real estate and we're entrepreneurs because we don't want to be caged up. We're not trying to work someone else's field. We're trying to build our own. And what's crazy to me is that people buy franchises because there's like a ready-made system that's valuable. Like, why has McDonald's scaled so greatly? What did Ray Kroc do that was different? He built a system, and he built that system and that brand to be, just super scalable. Walmart, Sam Walton, same way. Unbelievable retailer, and really just stayed relevant forever. Us as agents, like, what are we doing with our business? For me, like, to scale production, I've got to buy my time back. Just like I said earlier, it's so valuable. It's so critical. And then I need to make sure my agents are spending more time in the field producing than they are asking questions or deer in the headlights or like, I don't even know what to do. I don't know where to start. None of my agents can say that because they have a ready-made franchise system that they can jump into my ops, and it's instantly setting them on track.
That's so cool. Where do you think systems break in high volume?
I think systems break in high volume when they don't adapt. Because when you have like a certain scale, you have to be able to have a system that can adapt and change, because what you did yesterday to reach that scale is not the same thing that you may need to do tomorrow to get to that next page. And I think that that's very true from both a farming and production standpoint. Let's just say you want to sell 100 million, but you're selling $500,000 homes. You're going to have to sell a lot, right? That's a ton. That's 200 properties. So you either need to adapt and raise your average sales price and sell half the amount of transaction volume and create a system for that prospecting and that scale, or you're just not going to achieve your goal. And I think the same thing is true when you're scaling a real estate team. Like, your ability to adapt is critical.
Now, I need you to answer this one before my ops. What data or reporting do you wish you had more visibility into?
But pre my ops, I wish I knew my expenses better. Really, I had no clue, like, what was I spending per agent? So here's what happens with most teams. This is like, this is why we built a MyOps. Again, sorry for the plugs, but it's so critical to how I operate. We had zero visibility in basically the subsidizing of my production for the whole business. And so what most team leaders do, and I'm talking to teams at the highest level as I prospect with my ops. And when I start to break it down for them, it's crazy to just feel like I'm looking in the mirror at myself. where for the longest time, my production subsidized the team. And there was no understanding or visibility on how much we were spending on the actual cost of running a team, whether it be marketing expenses, office overhead, everything, printing. And team members, by the way, when you're producing at a high level, let's say you're selling $100 million a year, that's millions of dollars in GCI. It's so easy to be wasteful. It's so easy. It's so easy to order 10 bottles of champagne and just not even pay attention, right? Like we don't even know. We're moving and shaking, and we know money's coming in. We just know it's coming in, and we're just stacking.
And you know it's going
corner.
out. You just don't know where.
Exactly.
And I think this is one even on a brokerage level, they don't.
Absolutely.
You don't know what the individual, like, what's my break even on an individual agent with the cost of technology, with the cost of lost leads, with the cost of, energy and time that somebody takes from you. But, I think a lot of team leaders, I've become a big proponent of, you have to run the 2 P&Ls as a team leader or as a producing broker, because otherwise your $100 million revenue and expenses come into the one thing. The team still looks highly profitable when the team could have cost you a couple $100,000, because of the expenses or the people that are pulling it down. So I think that's a great thing. And I think if you get anything from this conversation, I mean, I've ran in QuickBooks for 20 years. I've got that much historical data. And we run it on our family level, like, broken down. I can tell you exactly with how much we've spent on Rhett's golf, or, on groceries or, going out to eat, because I want to be able to see it on that type of a, micro level, to be able to just look at it personally, which I think, has, worked in how I've looked at, the brokerage P&L or a team P&L. I like to know where I'm losing money.
Not only that, you want to understand where you're gaining value. And so you'll look at certain line items on a P&L. And if you're an agent who's listening to this, that you hear the word P&L and you're just like, that feels so out of reach for me, because me sitting down and going through my expenses and logging them in and putting them in QuickBooks, that's taking away from my DPAs, my dollar productive activities. Just know that when you make $1 and you don't understand what you're spending, you may be spending $2. You may, especially if you're not accounting from a tax standpoint. Troy and I were talking about financial literacy before we flipped the on switch. Most agents in the country are behind on tax payments. And so it's really about getting ahead, building, you would never, we're selling all these houses, but you never build a house before you poured a foundation. You never do it. None of us, because it's too critical, right? That foundation is where it starts. Understanding your expenses, whether you're a single agent all by yourself or you've got this massive team operation, is mission critical. It's the way to be a business owner versus just being this hobbyist that you're trying to make extra income on the side.
Okay, so a couple more questions now before my ops. But I think even still, these questions could be, my ops might not always be your piece that solves every problem. If you were to switch brokerages and you had to go find a CRM or find a middle of the funnel software or something like that, I think kind of think of it in that that world. But what criteria do you use to see whether a tool becomes something that you implement for your team?
Really, it has to win the favor of our operations. So if Maria approves it, then it's approved. I mean, I'll tell you guys, I'm simple. I don't use a CRM. I'll cross $100 million in sales in 2 months and 18 days next week for the year. And that's while I'm scaling up in a completely different company, actually 3 other companies. So for me, have a great system, but I'm not pulled into the weeds of, I'm just a traditionalist when it comes to selling, right? The ultimate anecdote to all of the things we're talking about is this right here. You got to be able to pick this up and make those calls and figure out how to add value in people's lives. And it's about getting more time back to do that at the highest level. So Robert Refkin, good friend of mine, he is heavy in the news cycle right now for obvious reasons. Love him or hate him, Robert is the ultimate prospector, right? He went out and prospected all these amazing agents, built Compass. And then he went out and he prospected like the biggest real estate conglomerate, is the funds to essentially purchase that. I mean, your ability to prospect just never stops. You're raising yourself to a different level, especially if you're just trying to go from a $500,000 average sales price to $1 million, right? That's a perfect example of that. Robert is a great example of somebody that went from I'm prospecting agents to I'm prospecting, M&As to I'm doing the biggest M&A in the history of real estate. And then now I'm re-prospecting all of those people to keep them in my sphere constantly. So as business owners and as people in this business, we never stop. As a traditionalist, I highly recommend you figure out what is the highest and best use of your time when you pick this thing up. And I can tell you it's not scrolling Instagram or TikTok. It's making phone calls.
How do you ensure the agents on your team are actually using the tech you provide them?
Okay, so what I love, and again, I'm going back to MyOps because that's what the tech I use. What I love about MyOps is that it has this leaderboard. Hold on, I'm going to show you guys. This is so good. So what's crazy is like most agents on a team, their production is not always recognized. And so typically the team is elevated by the team lead, and that visibility is all about team lead and or team production. What's cool about MyOps is that we built in a leaderboard function. So at any and all times, I can see where people are at. So we can see Isaiah's closed 4.6 million. He's got another 6.5 million in sales. I've got full visibility of team production at all times. I've got full visibility of how much, like we've closed 76.4 million year to date. So I can see everything. The team's incentive to adopt that technology is being able to see themselves grow, right? They're physically seeing their production on a leaderboard. They're being socially recognized and rewarded. And that's so powerful because a lot of us as agents, like Troy, you put us on a leaderboard, our competitive spirit comes out. It's why I liken us to athletes. And so when you gamify technology in a valuable and useful way where people are getting that recognition, like, for example, Gretchen Coley in Raleigh, North Carolina. She is a team of 30 plus agents. Her team operates on MyOps. They do hundreds of transactions a year. I will get pictures of their team members taking selfies as the leaderboard goes up, right? Like you build a mousetrap that's valuable. And guess what? These agents, they're having access to their data. And you have to really train them. This is the way. So if you're a team leader out there, you've got to have standards of process. And you stick to those standards. You create levels of accountability and you make sure that the standards of process are valuable. And that's what we've had to do at SG in order to get basically inputs from agents.
What do you think is missing in the real estate tech landscape, specifically for teams, outside of what you just created?
Yeah. From a broad lens, I just think there's communication and integration and brokerage borders have always limited talent collaboration. And so where I think the opportunity lies is in connecting talent beyond those brokerage borders. And so where I see limitations from tech platforms is like, you've got to go to one brokerage to get the best tech. That's, to me, that excludes a lot of talent that could be operating at higher levels. And so if we had more brokerage agnostic technology, I think that it would be really valuable just for our industry as a whole and elevating it.
And again, aside from your current product, if you could build a tool specifically for team leaders, what would it solve?
That's so hard because I did. If there's more tools I could build for team leaders, let me just show you guys a glimpse to the future, right? People talk about AI. What AI is going to rip across in the white collar world is its ability to interpret knowledge worker data and execute knowledge worker tasks. So as we speak, there are hundreds, if not thousands, maybe tens of thousands of companies and entrepreneurs working on AI agents. What I would like to see is workflows that AI agents can go and execute on behalf of real estate agents and teams in general to give us more time and to multiply our communication. And I guarantee you can roll this tape back a year from now, 2 years from now, we will all already be on that technology. And the ones that don't adopt those workflows will get left behind. And when I say left behind, I don't just mean like left in the dust. It's just you'll lose market share to somebody who's operating in a more efficient way. It's how our society is built. So I think more on the futuristic side, having AI agents that can deploy great workflows. It's why if you're an agent and you don't have systems and processes, you need to adopt them, or you need to write down what you're doing that's allowed you to get business and just do more of that and figure out how you build technology into that workflow.
I love that. What systems or tools do you think agents struggle with the most?
Data input. I mean, anything. That's why even with my ops, we really were like, how do we make this as simple as possible? And even as simple as possible is not simple enough. So this goes back to training yourself to doing the right things. It's why most agents don't have P&Ls, right? Like that's just not their thing. It's data entry that slows them down or the perception thereof. And so figuring out ways to reduce friction on that front is how you create more opportunity and really more momentum.
What's the most important dashboard or KPI to check daily as a team leader?
I think pending is always your lead measure and sold is always your lag. And so when you step on, again, like I call my leaderboard my scale, but when I look at that leaderboard and I can see instant visibility of where we have pending sales, where do we have, like, what's our active listing volume? I check certain farm markets. Just having quick glimpses and understanding of those pieces allow me to know where I'm at. And I think some agents, the other piece is going to be expenses, right? Like having that expense visibility. But really, when you talk about what's bringing in the dollars, it's pending sales and knowing your pending volume at a glance.
So you think pending more than number of calls made?
Absolutely, because one call
Or
made doesn't.
activities, the number of activities that relate to contracts written to deals pending?
Okay, so somebody was asking me the difference between a CSU and MyOps, and I said CSU lets you micromanage a team. If you are stuck in the weeds micromanaging your agents, you have the wrong people, right? Like you should not need to micromanage people. You have the wrong people. You need to fire them, let them go, release them back into the workforce, and bring on people that are just going to be as motivated and as dialed in as you are, even if that's less individuals. This is about quality over quantity. It's not about the quantity of calls. It's about the quality of calls. And I think if I've got to go micromanage every call that my agent makes and try to run through these numbers of, okay, we got to make 300 calls a day, they may just not.
You're not the right team for them.
Absolutely not.
And I will say, I think, I haven't seen full in depth of what you have, but I do know Sisu's product pretty well. Like there is a big drastic difference, between the two. There might be some common similarities there, but realistically, I don't think there's too much core product that's the same.
No, it's very different. But when you ask me that question, and I think of a lot of teams I've talked to that they really believe that the micromanaging of the DPAs, the dollar productive activities that their team does every day creates more output. What it does is in my opinion, it can waste more energy. So at Spears Group, we have a very decentralized command. And so what that does is it allows a little bit more autonomy for us to take on different market segments. And when I think about like, how do you become a top team in an MLS? There are different areas of the market you have to infiltrate. Somebody asked me the other day, like, what does that mean? I'm like, it means, real estate can be warfare. And you have to take ground and you have to figure out how do I plant the right seeds in the right parts of the market. And so the only way you do that is by decentralizing the command, and you start to stake flags with different people in different spots, and you empower those people to go and do the right things.
What tech or process creates the most agent accountability?
I think having visibility and transparency in your business is so important. Mm-hmm. So having transparency from a production lens, whether it be one-on-ones, quarterly meetings, I pull up in our leaderboard during our sales meetings. We just go through it. Man, if somebody's struggling on the team, it's like, dude, how do we jump in and help? Like, where have we missed out? And that may be a time for you to go a little bit more micro on their business, which is definitely something we do, but in, like I said, a more decentralized way. I think that from a technology transparency piece, of course, I'm going to say my ops, because all of these things that we're talking about, I've got rolled into that system. And it's because I literally, the only way I managed things before my ops was I had to go track it down. I had to ask, I had to put it in group text. We tried Sana, and like they weren't lining up in terms of communication, how we were able to manage stuff, and really creating visibility of information at a high level from every single person's business, because everybody on your team is essentially 1099 employee. They're running their own little micro business. Having that visibility so that you can put inputs into that and you can add value to that is critical.
What do you think is the most misunderstood thing about working on a team?
That we just give money away, right? Like as a team member, you're just giving money away. You better not be on a team unless you can leverage and value the brand or the other agents on that team, right? And the other agents are what create the brand. So if you're on a team right now and you're like, man, why am I on a team? I'm just wasting money. You need to reevaluate the value proposition. And if you're a team leader and you're thinking about the team as like, this is my retirement ticket, and, build organization and value for those people, and they will never leave. They'll never leave because you are so full of value. Teams are all about value provision. It has to be a mutual benefit, both from a team lead and a team member standpoint.
What's your biggest prediction about the future of team structures?
I believe teams will further conglomerize. I think that market share will get rolled up into teams specifically. Our market's a great example of that. Like if you were to look at the number 10 versus the number 1 team, it's like thousands of percentage points different. So teams dominate. And I think it's because when you pool talent and collaborate, 1 + 1 could equal 4. Right? It just, there's a compounding effect that is so beautiful. But I think from a future landscape, single agents, it'll be a lot harder to operate, especially with a potential decentralized, listing source, right? Like if MLSs are not the central hub for data from a listing standpoint, which if you look at a market like Miami, where you're seeing these big tech giants buy all these off-market properties, they're not going to MLS to find any of that. And so it's true for a lot of areas. And I think teams are the ones that will be able to pool and control a lot of data that would become valuable to consumers.
What do you think is the most overhyped tech trend?
Generalized AI tools that tell you that they are going to solve all of your problems, but really they're just shiny objects that don't create any necessity, right? Like if I told you I could just operate with pen and paper, and that was the basics, and you said, man, if you just had this AI tool, like it would fix all your problems. Like, actually, this is funny. Somebody the other day, and I got to be careful what I say, but we were pitching my ops to them, and they were like, this won't do my marketing for me. And I was like, man, there's not a silver bullet. And I think that's the danger is technology that's promised to be a silver bullet is dangerous. And really the silver bullet is you. It's not your brokerage. It's you. It's your ability to get yourself in front of clients and execute day in, day out. And technology is not going to do that for you, but it'll help provide you more time to go and do that.
What's one tool, and you don't have to name a name, but one tool you'd remove from the industry?
A tool that I remove from the industry.
And it could be a generic thing, but like,
yeah.
Something out there that you wish would just go away.
Spam emails. I think it would be a tool that wastes time, right? I almost look at like the red tape. And frankly, it's not that I'm not a fan of an MLS, but I literally have trolls in my MLS that will like troll my listings and be like, oh my gosh, he withdrew this and he didn't expire it fast enough. And I think it would be less about removing certain bits of pieces, but removing some of the regulatory bits that don't allow us to be nimble.
Answer. So that's all I've got for these questions. I did want to ask a couple quicker follow-up things. Your production for the team is what? Primarily Sphere of Influence? Are you guys buying leads or Zillow Flex or any of that stuff?
Well, if I look at my ops, our number 1 source of business is repeat client because it tells me absolutely everything in terms of where my business comes from. My number 2 source of business is open houses. My number 3 source of business, I was shocked. I was like, what? And my number 3 was cold prospecting, which I was super jazzed about. So repeat client is dominant for all of our team members, which is great. That means that they are following up, following through, following back. Cold prospecting and open houses were a 2 and 3.
That's pretty cool. And I imagine in there, you're getting a good amount of referrals from the repeat customers.
Absolutely.
Do you do anything for the referral people, like as they send you over a referral?
I'm a big, and it's cliche, but I love plants. And so I'll find like an exotic. We have these sprouted coconuts that you can buy and send people, and they're very cool. So it's just something to be thoughtful, and then really just making sure that the referring agents look like a rock star. So service is critical. Answer your phone, text people back. It doesn't matter how much inputs you've got, like figure out a system and process for that and do it efficiently.
Yeah, there was another conversation that I was on, and their primary source of lead gen is referral. And, he shows me an example that, is Andy. And he's like, the minute I get a referral from someone, I send them a Starbucks gift card in the text messages immediately. Like, boom. And then he signs them up in Client Giant for, quarterly gifts from Client Giant. And it's just little things like that go so far, especially when you're working, sphere of influence and not inbound leads and such.
You want to know what I do? I try to send that agent that sent me a referral a reciprocal referral. It's the best thank you. And so I'll try to go out of my way to go, okay, how do I find somebody that's in parallel with that market? And oftentimes it works very well and it creates more business. But I love actually what you're talking about because they've systemized gift giving and it's a part of their prospecting that they've seen results in.
Yep. And they pulled it into the CRM. They can track it.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really simple. So, well,
I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it's just, this is a human interaction business and you've got to keep the people interacting with you. And otherwise you're stuck.
You're stuck. You got to be thoughtful.
Same thing with open houses. I mean, geez, I feel like we could talk for hours about, open house conversion. Like, there's great tech out there. And I'm sure you probably were using a Google form at one point to keep track of the open house sign-ins, because I just don't see you using a piece of paper for open house sign-ins.
When I did open houses, my favorite thing to do was to not worry about the house at all. Didn't care about the house. It was just like honey in the honey pot. And when somebody walked in, it was all about them. Mm-hmm. Open houses are a theater, and it's an open stage where when somebody steps on stage, you make them the star of the show. You figure out all you can learn about them. And at the end of that, you're just very fortunate to ask, what's the best number? What's the best email? And then you follow up with them personally. And so I literally put people live on my phone, text them immediately, and figured out what's the follow-up strategy.
All right. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for the time today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. We could talk all day.
We could talk all day, but till next time.
Till next time. Look forward to it.